So today we're going to be breeding some Bettas in this bucket. Now, it's been a little while since I've bred some Bettas. I've done it quite a few times and I've just recently had the inkling to do this again. I've actually bred some Bettas maybe like 6 months ago. I grew them out. I had some really colorful fry. And today we're going to be taking those babies that I did breed and making another batch. So these are going to be like my second generation of Bettas. I thought today we'd do it in an interesting way and we'd breed them in this bucket. You don't need a lot of space to do this. You will need a lot of space to grow them out, and growing out the fry can be a little bit tedious, but we'll talk about that later in the video. All I've got here is I think this is a 20 litre bucket, something like that. There's a jar in here. I've got a heater and a few other little bits and pieces, but the most important thing that we've got is the fish. Breeding Bettas is a little bit of a challenge, but I'm going to try and make it as easy as possible today for you guys. What you're going to want to start out with is obviously a pair. So when you go to the shops, you're going to have to pick out a male and a female. It's not always guaranteed whether they're going to breed, but most of the time you'll have success if you do everything right. It just requires a little bit of patience. So when you go to the store, males normally have longer fins and a little bit more feisty than females. Females will have shorter fins. It depends what kind of Bettas you're getting because there's all different types of Bettas. There's crown tails, there's long fins, there's half moons. Say we're breeding half moon cats. There's all sorts of different Bettas, so it's hard to sex them by the fins. But what you're going to look for is this little white spot. It's the ovipositor on the female. It's really, really obvious when you look at them from below. That's how you sex if there's a female. Males don't have it, can screenshot them and use them for when you go to the store, but that's how I tell. From there, I like to use regular tap water. Sometimes softer water can help, but tap water seems to work for me. My tap water is about 7.2 pH. The TDS is about 180 to 200 parts per million, so it is a little bit on the hard side, but they seem to like it. I mean, these are heavily domesticated fish. From there, you're going to have to condition your fish. So you want to make sure they're nice adult fish, they're mature, and they're capable of spawning. I think around 6 to 8 months old is a pretty good age to start with. Most of the time when you buy a Betta, they'll be about a year old anyways. The way you groom them is you'll get both the Bettas in 2 containers, and for about a week, you feed them heavily on high protein foods. So I like to use frozen brine shrimp. Sometimes I'll use a little bit of black worm here and there. Frozen bloodworms can work. Just anything kind of meaty, like frozen foods, work pretty well. And you'll keep them separated in the containers and let them look at each other for a few hours a day, and they'll spar up at each other and go crazy. And then you take them apart and you just keep reintroducing them and taking them apart and reintroducing them and taking them apart. Basically, you're just teasing them. And eventually the female is going to get nice and fat, full of roe and full of eggs. And you'll see that little white spot will start to come out even further. That's when we know that it's time to try and spawn the Bettas. So the pair that I've got today is already at that stage, and we're going to try and spawn them in this bucket. To start with, I'm going to fill it up with some aged tank water. Now, the reason we have a jar in the middle is because we're going to separate the female from the male until she's ready to breed, and then we'll introduce them, see if they don't start spawning, because I could just introduce them now, but Bettas are known for being quite aggressive. They obviously have the common name fighting fish, and they do have that name for a good reason. Males can be a little bit aggressive towards females, and basically what we're trying to do with this method is keep the male separated from the female, but think that she's accessible to him. That'll give him an opportunity to build his bubble nest without hurting her. Once he's done building his bubble nest, we can then release the female in with him, and hopefully they'll spawn. We just got to give it a go. Sometimes it takes a few attempts. So I'll just fill this bucket up. That should do. So we got our water in here. I've added one other thing in here. This is a bit of bubble wrap. The way the Bettas spawn is the male will court the female after he's built like this bubble nest on the surface of the water. It's really, really cool. And they'll embrace each other, wrap around, lay a bunch of eggs. The male will go and put the eggs up in the bubble nest. Then the female's job's over. The male will take care of the eggs until they hatch and until they fry. It's really, really easy. And then we take the male out and we raise the babies. So we want somewhere for him to start to build this bubble nest, but he's probably going to build his bubble nest here, but it just kind of entices him to start building. Then we're going to add a heater because these guys like it a little bit warm. I've tried to breed these in the cooler water and it just doesn't work as well. I think the humidity helps with their bubble nest, so having nice warm water really works. I'm going to bump this up to like 30 degrees Celsius just to really give them that kick and get them in the mood. So I'll put that in here and can plug that in. So a heater is definitely necessary. So I've got a heater on. Now we can add the fish. We'll go ahead and add our female into the jar. In she goes. And then we'll add our male outside the jar. Now they'll just take a while to settle in. I'm just gonna add some of this foxtail. This is just a floating plant, and this is also gonna provide somewhere for the female to hide when I introduce her if he's trying to beat her up. And it'll also add some infusoria to the bucket, like little tiny bacteria that are gonna start growing in the process of breeding that the babies can eat for their first meal. So I'm just gonna add this at the top. It'll also kind of help to filter this little bucket. He might even build his bubble nest in here, who knows? But I'm pretty happy with that setup. I'm gonna leave them until tomorrow and I'll update you guys when they've built their bubble nest. But that's it for day one. Okay, so we're back with the Bettas and it's been 2 days. So I left them yesterday just to build a bubble nest and we're back today. And the male's built a pretty big bubble nest underneath that bubble wrap like I thought he would. So what we're gonna do is introduce the female and see whether we get the spawn today. It's currently in the morning, so I'm gonna let them go for at least until this afternoon and we'll see if there's any eggs. And if there's not, we'll separate her out, give her some more food, try and condition her up more, and see if she'll breed again. I'm hoping it just works the first time. So I'm gonna gently take this jar out. I try not to ruin that bubble nest too much. Well, looks like I've ruined it totally. They'll rebuild it together. Now there's still a bubble nest there, so we're all good. We'll take the female out. Okay, and we'll introduce her. Basically, I'm just gonna leave them and see how they go. And we might get like a little bit of aggression to start with, and then they might start bonding. You just kind of gotta suck it and see. Even if there is a little bit of aggression to start with, try not to panic because most of the time they kind of need to just sort it out. Like you'll see in here right now that they're starting to do a bit of like funny business. Yeah, you can see he's like going nuts at her. They can get like a little bit aggressive, but normally I'll leave him for a day. It's unlikely he's going to kill her. I've had it happen like once or twice, but I've bred a lot of Bettas. So, you know, these are the risks you do when you breed fish. Like it's not always going to go perfectly. We'll see what happens today. I've got a good feeling about this. So yeah, I'll see you guys later. Okay, so it's been like 3 days now since we set the Bettas up. And I know I said they was going to come back sooner, but I kind of gave them a bit of a chance and they failed me. I'm kind of glad this happened just to show you guys how frequently this does happen. I know lots of videos on YouTube show you just like instant success. And I didn't want to give you guys that false idea of this being something that's super easy. Breeding Bettas can be easy, but a lot of it's behavior with these fish. Like they're really personable and you kind of have to work with them a little bit and get them in the mood. They're kind of like people. They don't just do their thing like a zebra danio. I've given them a good chance. I've actually been feeding them in here still too to try and keep them conditioned. What I'm gonna do is just a little tactic of taking the female out for a day and I'm just gonna put her back in tomorrow. I'm gonna take her out, give her a bit of food, and then put her back in tomorrow. She's not like beaten up or anything, and she's pretty responsive to the male. I don't know, maybe she doesn't like him. So what we're gonna do is try and trick her into liking him by, you know, separating them out and playing a bit of a long distance game. I've still got my jar. I'll just put some water in here and we'll take out our little female. Come here. There we go. I mean, she's pretty plump and that little ovipositor has come out. I'll just keep her next to him today. Probably tomorrow morning, I'll just reintroduce him and see if we get some breeding. Okay, it's now the following day. We're back here with the Bettas and I'm pissed off. I've had this happen like once before, but overnight, something really, really weird has happened. The female's made a bubble nest in her jar and laid eggs by herself. I'm pissed off because she could have just done this for me yesterday, but that's part of the game when you're breeding fish. So I kind of don't understand why she would lay the eggs. Maybe she's got too many eggs in her belly and she's just letting them go. And I'm hoping that's the case because she didn't lay like a ton of them. But I'm still going to try and put her in here today. It could be a good sign that they're going to breed. I just thought it was really fascinating to show you guys. Like she's built a bubble nest and put eggs in it. Obviously these eggs aren't going to hatch because they weren't fertilized by the male. So I'll probably just feed them to some fish or whatever. But I'll go ahead and grab her out anyways and we'll add her to the container and we'll come back later today and see if there's some spawning going on. So in she goes. She's still really plump, so I'm thinking that she probably will breed. How interesting. Okay, so it's the following day and it didn't work. So I've got my Bettas in here. I left them for the day and they actually were breeding. I think the male and the female there's something going on. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they've eaten their eggs because they literally were spawning, flirting, doing the wrap, everything. and I've come back, there's no eggs, and the male's kind of looking a bit like lethargic. So what we're going to do is take out the pair, and I'm going to just recondition them and have another go. I've also done something else that's going to make this video a little bit more interesting. I've added another 2 pairs to this breeding attempt. I've got a crown tail and like a half moon placat, and I've also got Dumbo-eared and another long fin half moon that's white. I'll show you guys those pairs in a minute, but we're going to take these out. That way we're going to have 3 attempts. So hopefully I'll get all 3 to go. But we're definitely going to get some eggs if we try a few pairs. So let's get these guys out. So this is just, you know, one of the parts of breeding. It's not a guarantee that you're going to spawn your fish every time. And that's part of the fun, because when you do get it, it is so rewarding. We've got the pair here. So I'll go and show you guys our new pairs. Okay, so I've selected out 2 new pairs, and I've also taken out the original male and swapped it for a new male. He wasn't cooperating with me. I think the female is good. I think the male was kind of the problem. So I've taken him out, and I thought, if you're not going to do your job, I've got someone else who's going to do it. So I've got a brand new male. You can see here, these 2 are already pairing up. There's a beautiful long fin half moon placat, just like this white male that's beautiful. A Dumbo-eared that I'm going to cross them with. I really want to see what kind of babies they make. And then up here, I've got this really interesting looking crown tail male. For lack of a better words, this super duper ugly female that me and the girls at the shop picked out. And we just want to see what kind of fry they make. I think this female is going to do a really good job of breeding. We're going to just reset. I'm going to feed these all some frozen baby brine shrimp, condition them back up, set them all up again with you in a few days once all the females are ready to go. So fingers crossed this works. I just wanted to show you, I wanted to keep that first part of the video in here just to show you guys it doesn't always work. I wanted to show you guys me troubleshooting the issue as well. Okay, well, we're back with the Bettas today, and I've conditioned up all the pairs over the last week the exact same way that I was conditioning the original pair, and I've set them all up the exact same way. So today we're going to introduce the pairs and try again, see what happens. I'm not so confident about this black and white pair. This male seems to be, for lack of a better words, a bit of a dud. You never know, he might perk up now that she's in there. I definitely think this Dumbo-ear and the longfin white male are going to breed. Like, she's looking super plump, and her ovipositor's out. So he's already built a bubble nest for her. But I'm just going to like pour her in, and he can restart. And same goes for this pair. I feel like there's a good chance with the new male being involved. It doesn't really bother me them screwing up the bubble nest so much, because most of the time a really good pair will quickly rebuild it together. So it's just like a flirting thing for them to be able to see each other for a day and get used to each other. But now that they're in contact, you're really going to find out whether it's going to work. Fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. We might get some eggs this afternoon or tomorrow morning. You never know. That's the fun part about breeding. You never know, and it's such a nice surprise when it finally does work. So it's now the following afternoon, and I'm back with really good news. We've had 2 spawns in the first 2 buckets. So the orange bucket and this middle bucket, both of those pairs of Bettas are spawned, and we're going to take those females out because they've done their job. So now it's up to the males to take care of these eggs. Unfortunately, in this other bucket, there's been no spawning, and I don't think anything's going to happen. So I might take this male out and swap him out for another one and see if we do get some breeding. I'm really pleased that we finally got some eggs, because this was so frustrating, and I'm really happy that that koi female finally bred properly. All I do is just take the females out, try and not disrupt the bucket too much. There she goes. We'll leave that bubble nest in there, and same for this female. Okay, so we got the females there. They're all done now. So what I'm going to do now is leave these males to maintain the bubble nests. I'm not going to feed them anymore. I'm just literally going to leave them. They're going to take care of these eggs until they hatch, until they're fried, and I'll keep you guys updated with how it goes. Basically from now, we just wait until they're done doing their little things, and then we can start feeding them when the fry free swimming. Okay, so it's a few days later, and we've had a slight turn of events happen. So this project is just like completely not gone the way I thought it would, and that's okay. We had spawns in these first 2 buckets here, but for some reason something's gone wrong, and these males have just shit the bed basically, and decided to eat those 2 spawns. These 2 buckets were a fail in the end, but interestingly enough, I swapped out the male in here with a red samurai male, and I bred that really ugly female with that red samurai male, and they spawned, and now they have actual babies in the bucket. We've had 1 successful spawn, 4 fails for a success. Normally I have a little bit more luck with this, but it just didn't seem to work this time. And for the sake of the video, we're going to continue on with this pair, and we're going to watch these babies grow up. I'll show you guys exactly how to do the rest of the stages of the breeding. I'm going to take these 2 buckets down, piss them off, and we're just going to keep going with this one. Right now, he's done a really good job. He's fanned those eggs and they've all hatched out. And I think it's going to be a success from here with him. He's got all these little wrigglers in the bubble nest. They're not free swimming yet, so we're not going to feed them. They'll probably become free swimming in the next 48 hours. And at that stage, we'll remove him. But yeah, I just want to update you guys to show you that this can sometimes be a total mess. So it's now the following day, and the little babies have started to kind of free swim. So what we're going to do today is remove the male, and we're going to give them their first feeding. I still think they're a little bit too small to eat, but it won't hurt to feed them a little bit early. And this male's been doing a fantastic job. He's been keeping all of the babies inside that bubble nest, and he's actually a really good breeder. So I might use him for another project in the future because he's just proven himself to be really, really good. We'll start by taking him out. These babies will be all good without him. So I'll take him out. And then what we're going to do is I'll show you guys how I'm going to feed these. So I've got some bug buffet here. I'm just going to crush this like into a powder. It's going to like have like a dusting on the top and try and get this as fine as I can. Those little particles are going to fall through the water column and feed these for their first meal. Tomorrow, I'm going to give them some brine shrimp and we'll go through that together, and I'll show you guys exactly how to raise them. So the other thing I'm going to add right now is I'm going to add a mystery snail into this container. This little guy here is a mystery snail. And I use these as cleaners in the tanks, and I also use them as cleaners in these buckets. And that little mystery snail is going to go around this bucket and help to tidy up all that uneaten food by eating it and breaking it down into further poop. And it just helps to keep the container clean. So I don't add the mystery snail until they're free swimming because I don't want them eating all the eggs or getting in the way of the breeding. That's what we're up to. So I'll keep you guys updated as we go on. Okay, so we're up to like day 20 now. I've been feeding these little babies bug buffet for the last 2 days, and they've started to grow quite a bit. So I'm going to introduce some baby brine shrimp into the diet to try and help them grow. So normally people would feed them baby brine shrimp from day 1. You can try and do that, but I found that these little betta fry are just a little bit too small to eat the baby brine shrimp from day 1. We hatch our baby brine shrimp here on a daily basis at the fish room, and we've always got it. But if you guys are looking to breed some fish, I definitely recommend hatching out brine shrimp. It's probably one of the most important things to having success as a breeder is learning how to do it. I've got videos on my channel. It's not hard at all. But we're just going to feed some of this today. And what I do is just put it over the top like this. Because these brine shrimp are alive, they're a live food, they're going to survive inside of this bucket for the next 5 to 6 hours. They're going to provide a constant food source for these bettas to feed on during the day. So if I can feed this once in the morning and once at night, it's beautiful because they're going to get fed pretty much all day and we're not going to have any starvation. Anything that wasn't in will be cleaned up by the mystery snails, and it just works out really, really well this way. So I'm not going to update you guys until these get much larger. We'll probably just do one more update before the end of the video once these get a little bit bigger, but you're going to see these will grow really, really quick now because that brine shrimp is full of nutrients and protein, much more than the bug buffet ever could be. It's much better than any dry foods you can buy. Brine shrimp is an excellent food source and something I would highly recommend to having success with your breeding. So it's been a little while, and we're back here with the bettas today. I think we're going to wrap up the video here. They've grown quite a bit. There's some bigger ones in this batch, and then there's some little ones. You normally get that, especially with the bettas. For some reason, you just get some sprinters, they get really large, and then the little ones kind of stay a little bit smaller. But today I'm going to take them out, remove them from the bucket, and put them into a grow out tank where they're going to finish their growing out until they're adults and we can sell them. I'm going to definitely do this experiment again. I've already got some bettas that I'm conditioning up, and I'm going to run the experiment again. We're going to try and actually get a little bit more success. This video is just to show you that you can do it. I'll try and keep you updated with the babies as well when I start getting color. Maybe in a separate video we'll update it. In the end, we've probably got about 35 to 40 bettas in here, and the snails have grown quite a bit too, which is pretty cool. Like I said, it didn't really work with the original pairs, and sometimes that just happens. It was a little bit crazy at that time here in the fish room when we did set this experiment up, so it was pretty hard to keep on top of the experiment. We ended up getting some bucket babies. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.